part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Chase Smith, founder and CEO of Press Play Podcast. You may have heard me on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast with Jeremy Powell, now wonderfully hosted by Holly Wetzel, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast with Sam Amico, or my own podcast, the Chase Smith Podcast. I wanted to take a few moments to talk to you about a brand new subscription-based podcast we're offering this football season, the Press Play Sports Podcast. This premium podcast feed will send all of the sports podcasts offered on the Press Play Podcast Network to one central feed. Yes, you can still follow and subscribe to all of our individual shows for free on every podcast platform. But if you wanted to consolidate your podcast feed and listen to them all in one location, the Press Play Sports Podcast is for you. I'm talking the Oranges and Oranger Browns podcast with Holly Wetzel and Jeremy Powell, Red Guy and Rhoda, Sable Brothers on the Baseline, Cavs on the Break, the Dennis Maniloff Show, the Ball Card Show, the Premium Fantasy Podcast, a Swing in a Tribe MLB podcast, and the Tim and Shipe Show, a college football podcast, all in one feed. All 9 of our sports shows curated into one single podcast feed. Out the door, you're looking at $5.36 a month after tax. That's $5.36, just about the cost of a drink at Starbucks. And this is only offered on Apple Podcasts. You can't get this anywhere else. It's an Apple Podcast exclusive. Just go to the search bar and search Press Play Sports. It'll come up and you can subscribe from there. We're excited to offer this consolidated, curated sports feed for you to enjoy. And as always, thank you so much for listening and your support.
This episode of the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Align Health Center. Align Health Center is the first chiropractic biophysics clinic in Northern Ohio. The team at Align Health Center helps patients with back pain, neck pain, migraines, ADHD, digestive issues, sleep disturbance, whiplash, scoliosis, and much more. And along with chiropractic biophysics, Align Health Center is also the leading clinic in regenerative medicine, also known as stem cell injections. And listen, you don't have to be an NFL player to get it done or have this treatment. If you have low back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, or arthritis, check out the Regenerative Medicine Clinic at Aligned Health Center. Come in for a free consultation, complete with imaging and x-rays to see how Aligned Health Center can help you. No multiple shots are needed, and it's complete with physical therapy built into the process, so there's no downtime. And look, it gets even better. Align Health Center doesn't charge people for x-rays or exams, and they don't bill you later. They let you know right away the cost. They're upfront and transparent. They are number one for a reason. Call Align Health Center today at 440-385-7357 or visit their website at alignedhealthcenters.com to make an appointment and to learn more about how Align Health Center can help you. Again, that's 440-385-7357 or visit alignedhealthcenters.com.
45-40, run, William, run! He's got blockers in front, 5, touchdown! Joshua Cribb! Snap back, ball down, kick block! They blocked the kick!
Hello, and welcome into the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. I am your host, Holly Wetzel. You can find me on Twitter at Holly and Liz, and I am joined by the infamous Jeremy in Akron, Mr. Jeremy Powell. And Jeremy, do you like, by the way, how I would try to mix up your name every week?
Oh,
try to do something
that's great.
Exciting and different.
You were doing a fantastic job.
Well, and, just trying to make you feel special. That's my only goal.
You're good at it. You really are.
Jeremy, do we have a lot to unpack, or do we have a lot to unpack?
Oh my gosh. What a disaster.
The Browns continue to be a never-ending saga every day. Every day there's something new. And it's usually something bad, right? Yeah. It's more bad than good if we really look at all of the history. And what's stung more than anything, I think, is the good that we've experienced is that it makes the bad even worse, right? It makes everything 10 times feel worse than it probably really is. But so we will get into whatever the hell that was on Sunday of play. Yeah. And then honestly, I was writing up some of the rundown yesterday, and I'm like, I have to completely change this after the Baker shoulder gate saga. So we'll get into that too, but start with the Sunday's loss to the Cardinals and 37-14 to the undefeated head coachless team. I feel like every week we don't know what team is going to show up. It's just not been, if there's one theme that we'll talk about is the inconsistency across the board.
That's a great point.
And, I got a text yesterday from actually a national executive in sports, very high up that I know. And we were texting about some of the games, and he said, the Browns
hashtag humble brag there.
Humble brag. Well, someone's got to brag, right? And it's going to be me.
No, I love it. I love it.
I got friends in high places. Jeremy,
I know. Hey, I know.
But he said the Browns are the biggest mystery in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's so true. Like, they really are just the biggest mystery right now. And I think Dan Orlovsky said today, what did he say? Like, the Browns are a 6-0, have a 6-0 roster.
They're a 3-3 team with a 6-0 roster.
That's
they're a 3-3 team with a 6-0 roster. And he's absolutely right. And it's such a good point what you just said, because the Browns are such a mystery, because look at all their games. They've all been different. Look, They score a bunch against Kansas City. Then the defense wins a couple of games. Then the defense looks absolutely awful. Can't get a stop. So you've had kind of like these subsets of seasons. You had a couple of games where the offense was great. You had a couple of games where the defense was great. You had a couple of games where it was just a nightmare all the way around.
Yep.
So, and now we're into the point where everybody knows. I mean, look, everybody knows the NFL. There's going to be injuries. Everybody has injuries.
Yes.
It's who can overcome them. I think one year the Green Bay Packers won the Super Bowl with 35 people on the IR. So, but the Browns right now, man, this injury report is pretty phenomenal here.
It is.
It's like nothing I've ever seen. And then the Baker Mayfield stuff, like you said, the shoulder stuff. Oh man.
Yeah.
Why does it feel like, why are we such a lightning rod? Why is Baker such a lightning rod? You can't turn on a national show without the Browns front and center.
Right.
It's like if the Browns are good, they're front and center. If the Browns are bad, they're front and center. It's just like they're so polarizing. And Baker's so polarizing.
Yes.
And I can't actually put my finger on why he's so polarizing, but he is, man. These Colin Cowards and the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, they love.
Well, because he feeds back into it, Jeremy, too.
True. Like we talked about.
Right. When you're keeping that going, I mean, that's where the distractions come in. And he's very polarizing, and we will dissect all of that. And I know we want to just briefly at least go over the monstrosity of Sunday.
Yeah.
But, I think that, we really weren't in this from the beginning, but at the end of the first, we weren't coming back. We aren't, because we can't, Jeremy, we're not built like that. And
I agree.
Six flags called, which I know that wasn't all of our fault, but it was just, by the way, I cannot help but think that our guys calling out the refs last week maybe had something to do with all the flags. I don't know. I mean,
I think there was some incompetence from the referees mixed in with probably a little bit of animosity towards the fact that we called them out. They're human too. But yeah, it was a mess. It was such a weird game being in the stadium. It was almost like the least energized crowd I'd ever seen coming into a game. And then the refs helped to get them energized with those horrific calls. And then boom, next thing you know, I mean, especially once he hit D-Hop for that wide open touchdown, the air just completely came out of the place. Yeah. It was a weird atmosphere, a weird game. Just strange.
And it ended, I mean, it couldn't have ended worse. It just, I knew after, I had such a small amount of hope after that Hail Mary, but really I knew at the end of that first quarter, I just felt, we're out of this game. Like, we're not, that Hail Mary wasn't enough. I knew that wasn't going to be enough. Then we got banged up, Chubb was out. And I thought for sure, like, I definitely think we felt that presence of Chubb being out. I don't know why we didn't run the ball more than we did. I know we were without our two top tackles. We had, no Landry, by the way, he was practicing today, which is a good sign.
I saw that.
And then we had the chemistry issue with OBJ, which I might have to backtrack on what we talked about last week, because as much as I want to fight that and feel like there isn't one, it was really hard last week to not see that there is something still just missing. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
I just don't think they're getting him in. There was and me and Chase talked about this last year. There was this film breakdown that showed that if you get OBJ the ball between the numbers and the hashes, he's almost unstoppable. And then you see on that, remember that little slant he hit when he actually hurt his shoulder? That was like one of the first time we've thrown him the ball in that area of the field, and he makes something happen. So it's got to be a little bit of coaching, a little bit of scheme, and a little bit of chemistry. But you're right, it does feel forced. I mean, it does. And then you see DPJ, who's the lone bright spot of the entire game. Donovan Peoples-Jones with the trucks the guy on the touchdown and then the great catch. It just feels like he's destined to be the number one receiver on this team. It really does. It feels like, I don't think it's going to happen during this year because Odell Beckham Jr. is not worth anything in the trade market. So I think they'll suck every little bit of whatever they can get out of him this year. And then I think going into next year, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think he's got the talent to do it, is going to end up being our number one receiver. To me, he was the lone bright spot. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. Bad. It was
bad all over the place. It was just a straight circus. I just from top to bottom. And, I just, the only one thing consistent, by the way, is Stefanski going for it on those fourth damn downs. And
that's exactly what I was going to say. How stubborn? I mean, how stubborn is he? It's just unbelievable at this point. Whatever we say last week, 13 of 33 since he took over. We'll make that 13 of 35 now, or what, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just at some point he has to start taking the points. He just has to.
Were we down by one? But were we down 7 or 14 when we went up?
The first one was 7. The first one was 7-0. The first one we went for was 7-0. Right.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
And so it was. It just. And I think I I don't tweet anymore, so I posted on Facebook as it happened. I was like, man, is Stefanski stubborn? This is a stubborn dude. He does not care. It doesn't matter. I'm sure in the back of his analytical mind, he keeps saying they're going to turn soon. It's like the guy that keeps betting on black at the roulette wheel.
Right.
Eventually, this black's going to hit, right? Eventually, they're going to hit. But
it's not. They're not. And by the way, he's been figured out, Jeremy, by the league.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
And there's a collective groan in the stadium, believe it or not. First time I've ever seen this. Usually when the kicker comes in, there's a collective groan, right? Now it's when the kicker doesn't come in, there's a collective groan in the stadium. It's crazy. No, look, we're built to play with the lead. We're not built to play from behind. We've talked about that before. Yep. The Browns are a team that's built to get up early and then punish you and run out the clock. And right now, like you said, either the league's figured them out or, there's got to be an adjustment coming somewhere at some point.
And then the other piece that we have not highlighted how terrible it was is the defense, because they've given up over 30 points the last 3 games each game, right? It was like 30, it was 40. Was it 40 this week? Yeah, it was. It was 40.
37-14. 37-14.
Then 40
this week, 47.
47 last week. God,
yeah, 37 and 47 the last 2 weeks. So 43 points. 43 points a game the last 2 weeks, and just guys running wide open. I mean, that touchdown pass on third down to the D-Hop was just there. I mean, you don't see receivers that wide open in the NFL, and especially the number one receiver on the team and perhaps the number one receiver in the league, right? Running wide open. Yeah. Just didn't make sense.
Yeah, my brother actually last night sent me this. He said Sunday was the first time DeAndre Hopkins scored 2 touchdowns in a game with more than 3 yards of separation since 2016. And it wasn't even close. 7.6 and 6.7 yards separation. Yeah,
the one was like,
yikes.
How do you lose that guy? How do you lose the best player in the league or the best receiver in the league? It's just weird. I don't even know where to begin. And what's funny, coming in, you would think, well, if the Browns got smoked, it's probably Kyler Murray running all over the place. Kyler Murray had 6 yards rushing. Kyler Murray had it wasn't Kyler Murray. It was wide open guys running, free in the secondary again. And, no matter what the Browns say, I mean, they invested a lot of money and assets in that secondary. And this has to be a serious, serious concern right now. And, they're publicly saying, they back Joe Woods, but there's got to be some talk. I mean, in closed door meetings about what are we going to do about this guy and what are we going to do to fix this? There's got to be a lot of closed door meetings going on over there because of across the board of what's going on, because everything just seems to be kind of falling apart, out of whack. Just not sinking at all. And like, if you would have told me that this is how we were going to start the Brown season, I would have laughed in your face and been like, you're crazy. The way they started out with Kansas City was the way that they should have started out, and they should have won that game. Yeah. And remember what we said, if this goes bad, this has the potential to go bad.
Right.
another loss or two. And you got a lot of high priced big attitude, big ego type guys that haven't said much yet. But I'm telling you, you get to 3-5, you get somewhere in that range, you're going to start hearing some grumblings. You're going to start hearing these anonymous sources leaking to the Colin Cowherds of the world. And it's going to be back. Two things Cleveland's do well. We do draft and we do drama well. So we'll be talking about drama in the draft before too long. So the good news is we're 3-3. There's 17 games now. We can still right the ship. But man, oh man, all these injuries, just like the perfect storm brewing here in Cleveland right now.
Oh yeah,
perfect storm of dysfunction.
We don't do well with those. We do not do well with those. And I wanted as much as I could to avoid all of this.
Right.
And we are we're driving right into it. So overall, the loss was pretty abysmal. And I would have loved to redo. And I wanted to turn that game off a lot earlier than I ended up doing so.
It's one of the first times in the last few years where I'm sitting at the stadium thinking of all the other stuff I could be doing right now. When I thought that those days were behind us. I mean, can you think what is outside of Donovan Peoples-Jones? Can you think of another bright spot in that game? Jadeveon Clowney got a sack, I guess. I mean, no. Miles' sack was kind of
the Hail Mary.
Lucked into it. The Hail Mary, and that's Donovan Peoples-Jones. That was the farthest throw in the NFL since 2016. I think it was 65 yards in the air. It was the longest completion in the NFL since I think 2016. I read, or longest traveled completion in the air.
Right.
So I guess that. So, I mean,
yay! It's like, what, I mean, I don't.
There's so little.
Yeah, it's. I tweeted too. Boy, this is now. I kind of wish you were back on Twitter, Jeremy, because it was so funny. All the people that came for me last week, all of a sudden is like, oh, I have questions, and what about this? Yeah. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, where's everyone last week?
Right.
On my ass. Guess what?
Yeah.
I don't want to. Nothing I said was detrimental. They're all legitimate concerns that just came out again this week.
Yeah.
Glaring. And then that goes to, we'll get in now. We're actually going to take a quick break and we will get into the shoulder gate, Baker Mayfield, the ever changing saga every minute. So we will take a quick break and we will be right back.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
and me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, we are back here on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. We are now going to get into the most important piece, per usual, Baker Mayfield. So
this is our regular 15-minute
our regular
therapy / discussion / what do you do about the Baker Mayfield experience here? What do we do about this? You know, it is crazy. So in a half an hour span today, I thought there's no way Baker's playing Thursday. Then I thought, yeah, he's going to play Thursday. And then by the end of his press conference, his press availability today, I thought, he may not be playing this week. So tough to tell, at the end of that thing, he said, if he felt, he says it's his decision, which I think it should not be. I think this decision should be taken out of his hands. It should be the coaching staff and the medical staff decision on whether he plays Thursday. It shouldn't be Baker Mayfield's decision. And Baker also said that if he felt like he would be a detriment to the team or hampering the team, he would not play. And so I hope that's true, because there's just no way you can watch him when he's scrambling around the pocket, the ball popping out of his hands all the time, can't protect himself. He said today the problem was he didn't have 2 hands on the ball. Well, why doesn't he have 2 hands on the ball? Maybe because his shoulder hurts to cover the ball. I don't know. But it's just I hope that was an honest statement. And I hope that if he thinks that he can't play at 100%, that they just let Case Keenum go. And because I just can't imagine, after seeing him rolling around on the ground and J.J. Watt calling for the doctors to come out, that that he's going to be anywhere close to 100% Thursday. I just can't believe that it's even possible.
Well, and I want to back up with the shoulder injury stuff, because
sure,
I think the timeline is pretty important in this too. And I'm not. By the way, I want to preface this. I certainly don't think that he's clearly hurt. Like that's a thing, yeah, but it's the way that it's been presented, kind of unfolded and presented is what I have a problem with. And it's hard to believe what's coming out, because if you think about it, it was week 3, we think he got hurt, right? Because then week 4 was against the Bears.
He got hurt against when he making a tackle against the Titans, right? The interception when Anthony Schwartz didn't run the route. That was the Texans game.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. It was a Texans game. He got hurt making the tackle.
Right.
We didn't hear that it was a torn labrum for a couple weeks.
Right. Because they played the Bears. Right. And then we didn't hear anything, especially too, I think, because the defense just dominated and there wasn't really too much focus on
and then he didn't play well against the Vikings. And then the report breaks, right, that he has a torn labrum.
The Vikings. That's where I was missing. Okay. Yep.
So how did that come out? Where did that come from? Was there someone providing cover for him? Some people say the team was providing some cover for Baker. Maybe Baker was providing some cover for Baker. Right. I don't know, but it's 100% legit. Look, the dude was in pain. There's no doubt it's a legit injury.
Absolutely. And I think though, what's hard with me with this is that, we've criticized him on certain of not being able to execute on, those big plays. And then that's when the narrative of the shoulder stuff kind of comes up, and then he's wearing the shoulder brace and the whole thing. Then it goes to, he had a stat-wise a great game against the Chargers. Again, though, couldn't get it done in the end. And I see him throw up that Hail Mary, those Hail Marys at the end. And I thought, well, all right, well, it can't be bothering him that much, right? He's launching these things.
The farthest throw in the league.
Right. So at that point, it can't be that bad, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Then we go to the game on Sunday, and up until right before the Hail Mary, that he actually completed, up to once he hit that, I thought to myself, then the injury cannot be a factor, because he's clearly making these throws, and why is he making these Hail Mary throws and then he's not hitting these short direct passes?
Short to intermediate game has been atrocious this year.
Yeah, he's jittery. He's inconsistent. He's just all over the place. He's just not himself. So then the narrative comes back. Well, he's hurt. So then when he re-injures himself, right, looks awful. Watched him fall. Looked beyond painful. Yes, you got JJ Watt, you got all the guys kneeling next to him. We think this is it, right? He re-injured himself. It's worse. And he did. He went to the 10th, and you see him going in and out of the 10th. Then he comes out, and I'm like, wait a second. What is he doing? He's coming back out? Yeah. He's going to play? Why? What's happening? Like then I'm like, this is insane. So then the rest of the game was just a disaster. So we're all, like you said, we're all prepping ourselves for, he needs to take a break. He needs the rest, whatever. He's getting an MRI. Then he needs to get a second opinion on the MRI. Don't get a second opinion when something's good. So all of these things, then he comes out today, like you said. And, if he can, like, if he gets to go ahead, he's going to play. That's, and he's like, we're 3-3. Like, this is what we have to do. And I got to go out there. And this goes back to, Jeremy, the things that we love about him are the things that I don't like about him, because at some point, is it really going to benefit your team? I don't see how, because now, if you're telling me now that after you've re-injured this thing, it is now not partially torn, it is fully torn, and you can play, then I don't want to hear a damn word about the injury, about your play. It's not an excuse anymore, because that's not fair. You can't use it use that narrative when it fits and then not.
Right. And you have a experienced backup. If you are this hurt, sit out a couple weeks. This is why we pay him $6 million a year. Remember, we pay Case Keenum $6 million a year. Pay him a lot of money. So you're right. I agree with you 100%. If it's not affecting your play, shut the hell up about it.
Yes.
If it is, sit down for 2 weeks and let Case Keenum play, get right, and then come back when you're right. That's what it is. That's what it's got to be. So I don't want to hear anything else about it.
Yep.
Right. And he's obviously hurt. He's obviously hurt. But if he's well enough to play over a veteran who has led a team to the playoffs and won a playoff game just a few years ago, then if you're well enough to play over him, then you're well enough to play. If you're not, let the veteran guy come in and play a couple games. The guy making, $500,000 a game. Right. Let him jump in. Let him jump in and play.
And this is winnable for him. This is the perfect. If there's ever a time for us to have this situation, it's against the Broncos with on a short week this year.
3-game losing streak. They're beat up as well. They're on a 3-game losing streak on a short week. They just got beat by the Raiders, who had a ton of turmoil. Like, you're right. This is the time to sit out, let your shoulder, heal as much as it can without surgery, and let Case Keenum play.
Yeah. You'll love this. So I tweeted relatively something similar to what we just said. And I got some, well, first of all, just the fucking responses. I can't, but this one guy said, like, he's a martyr. He's going to go out there. He's our guy. And I'm like, he's a martyr? Well, how is he a martyr? Well,
that can be interpreted two ways. He could be making a martyr of himself. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? As in, that's how he can save himself in this situation. But you're right. You said something else smart. Very intelligent earlier when you said that the things we love about Baker Mayfield are things we hate about him. He's a gamer. That's what he does. His leadership and his leadership qualities and stuff like that is his best trait. And maybe to his own detriment now, maybe to a fault, that he can't see that Case Keenum would be better to play right now. And him saying that it's his call if he plays or not. If that's true, to me, that's dysfunctional. This should 100% be the Browns and the medical staff's call on who starts this game Thursday. Right. And I'm sure it is, but Baker sure did frame it today in his press availability like it was his call.
Yes, right. So. Yeah, because if the doctors say, you can play on this, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't recommend it. That's kind of what he alluded to, too, that it was kind of presented to him that's probably not the best idea, and he doesn't want to listen. And he needs to get out of his own way in that sense. And I respect his dedication and his hard work and his grittiness and all of that. But the best thing he can do as a leader, too, is recognize that the best thing for the team is probably him sitting out. And if he does go out there and play anything less than decent/good and not get that win, Jeremy, it's done. I don't want to hear one more word about the injury then.
No, I don't either. I agree. Yeah.
That's done. And he can't. he doesn't have to prove anything anymore. In that sense, I should say. He has a lot to prove still. But in that sense of being able to carry, no one's going to go after this Case Keenum quarterback controversy. It's not going to happen. We all know that he's the starter. He shouldn't. I hope to God there isn't any thought in his head of like, Case goes out there and plays well. That's what he should do. That's what he should do.
And Baker doesn't have to prove that he's tough or that he's a gamer or that he's gritty. We all know
in that sense, right? We know that, yes.
Right. That is not something that he has to prove at this point. Right now he might have to prove that he's mature enough to say, "Hey, look, I'm hurt. Let Case play." And but we'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens.
Well, the bottom line is that's what I've had problem with this injury thing is that it's been introduced and removed whenever it felt like it was convenient. And at this point now, if this is what we're rolling on and he goes in there, then it's wrapped. And then that tells me that then maybe he isn't going to be the one, because if that's his best play right now and there's nothing else affecting it, then that's not good enough.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we know that it is affecting it. That's the whole point. But you're going to be that bullheaded about it. And I you never want to assume, but that's what we do here on the Orange Oranger, because that's what makes this podcast fun. But it's how do you not, from everything that's presented to us, and I know that he's in a ton of pain. He talked about that today. Like he said, it was beyond anything. And also, just side note, he's so snippy with all the reporters. That really drives me crazy. And I know that he's not meaning to do that, but like they also are trying to do their job. That's just a whole side note of criticism. It just bothers me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just irritated with him right now with everything.
I heard him. He got a little short with Daryl, I think. And I caught that a little bit as well. And I'm sure he's obviously feeling the pressure and annoyed as well. Yeah. He even said he can't sleep through the night. He said he can get comfortable, but then once he moves a certain way, he wakes up in pain. And
it's like, if you can't sleep, how are you going to go play a football game? That doesn't make any sense to me. So of course, I want more than anything. I believe in, of course I trust him. I just think that in certain instances when he says, you don't know how, only I know how I feel. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also not a doctor. And it takes one hit, Jeremy. You take one bad hit again. That's all it takes. And someone else, when I said that on Twitter, someone responded like, I trust him. Like, I know he's going to get done. It's like, how you can't trust our O-line right now. You have no idea what can happen out there. He can slip without any contact. That's what happened. He said
we're on our third right tackle. We're on literally our third right tackle, who's supposed to be a project and not see the field this year, and he's starting. And we got Blake Hance, who's doing an admirable job at left tackle, but I mean, he's a guard. Joel Petonio even said he's not a left tackle. He's an interior lineman playing left guard. So tough situation, man.
And so you don't have those pieces behind you. And even if they did, I'd be like, okay, well, at least I trust, our own line a little bit more, but it's not there. Like, this is just not the week to prove anything outside of the best thing you can do is prove that, the situation, you trust the medical staff of the Cleveland Browns, and you trust your backup quarterback to get a job done. That's very much attainable, right? And you move on to the following week and you get your rest. And really, though, at the end of the day, Jeremy, he's going to need surgery. I'm sure of it. I'm not a medical doctor, but from everything I've seen and gathered, and they've interviewed doctors, he's probably is going to need it at the end of the year. And that's fine. But it's just, if there's anything they can do in the interim, and I don't know what that is, to get him at least more comfortable and more stable, and he does take at least this game off, I think everyone around him would feel better. And I feel like now his back, if he does play his back is up against the wall more than it's ever been, to a certain extent, because it is now Baker versus Baker almost.
Yeah, I agree. And, I would love to be wrong and have Baker go out and throw for 300 yards and put on a show and,
absolutely,
lift up his teammates. And, I would love to come on next week and say I'm wrong, but I just can't see it happening. I just can't see it happening. So,
well, since we are talking about this next game here, let's get into that. So, you mentioned the Broncos are coming off, they lost 3 straight. They started out well, 3-0, but now they are right in line with us to go 3-3. They a couple bright spots for us. They're the worst in the NFL on third down. So that's a good sign.
We can
for
get
us.
off the field. Yeah.
We can convert on third downs. Yep, 100%. They are the fourth worst team in the NFL, giving up just over 3 sacks a game. And Raiders were all over that over Teddy last week, taking advantage of that. We also have John Kelly being brought up. He had a pretty good preseason showing. So he'll be pretty fresh.
We'll see.
I am grasping.
I'm in this. I like D'Ernest Johnson. Now, I've said
nice and fresh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like D'Ernest Johnson. He's a nice player. I'm not as much a believer as next man up as some guys are. These guys are the first string guys for a reason because they're the best of the world. And Kelly, he's a great good player. Obviously, if you're in the NFL, you're a great athlete, but they're just not the top level guys. So we'll see. I like D'Ernest Johnson. I think D'Ernest is a nice player. He had some nice game against Cowboys last year. I think he'll fill in okay. But I mean, Nick Chubb, in my opinion, the second or third best running back in the league, and Kareem Hunt's the 10th best running back in the league. So I don't know how you. I don't know. You just don't replace those guys, and especially when you're missing your right and left tackle. So I don't know. I mean, they'll scheme it up, and it just feels like this is a week they should throw the ball more. But if Baker plays, can we throw the ball more? So I guess we'll find out.
Well, that's where, again, for the third week in a row, I have no idea what's going to happen. I really don't have any feeling it could go one way or the other, and that's what's happening.
We could come in and run them out of the gym. Yes. Or they could come in here and embarrass us. It could 100%. Go either. Yeah. And I guess a big thing is them having to come across the country after a crappy loss to play here. It's probably going to be tough for them to get hyped up about the game. So we do have that in our favor. The fact that we are home on the short week is, as opposed to being on the road on the short week. So we do have a few things going for us. We'll see. I would like to maybe this could be Odell Beckham's week, but he hasn't practiced yet this week. So he was a DNP the last 2 days. So
Yep.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. So what's your prediction?
Pain.
Right.
I think because of what I just said, I think the Browns are going to win. I think it's probably going to be a sloppy, ugly game. I think maybe a 21-17, somewhere in that range. I think the Browns will find a way to do it. I hope it features, I hope they start to feature DPJ a little bit more. I think obviously he's got the talent. He's big. He can catch. He can run. They've started to the last few weeks. He's actually had really good games the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. So they're starting to incorporate him more and more into the offense. And they'll just have to scheme it up, man. It looks like Jarvis is going to be back, which would be a big lift, I think, to the team emotionally. Yes. Clearly, he's the emotional leader, and just of this group. So, and then Myles Garrett had another closed door players only meeting I read today or yesterday. So maybe I don't know what the worth is on that.
Well, last time he did that,
he played well. Yeah, the Bears game before the Bears game. So maybe he does, and maybe he comes out and plays with his hair on fire and has a great game. He's certainly against this offensive line. They could do it. Yeah. So this could be a week, and Teddy Bridgewater's just kind of, Teddy Ballgame is just kind of a middle of the pack type guy. Doesn't do anything particularly well. Smart guy, but so I think, and they've got some injuries. They got Jerry Judy's on the IR. Cortland Sutton's playing but banged up. Noah Fant's banged up. So a lot of their weapons are banged up. So, there's the opportunity there for the defense to play really well. So that's what I'll stick with that. I'll stick with 21-17 Browns is my prediction. Browns win a sloppy, hard-fought game.
Yeah, I want to say like a 17-14, and I want to say the Browns, but I could see Denver pulling out at the end too. And I think, again, it's going to be a very sloppy, gritty. It's not going to be a pretty one. It's going to be another ugly win if we get it done.
Yeah.
I think that unless we're both completely wrong and Baker comes out and shows us that the injury is nothing, but I don't believe it anymore. And if he goes out there and he plays, no more.
And if that happens, if he goes out, we will be happy to come on here and I'll eat all the crow. And I'll 100%. Say, Baker, you're the man. We'll be partying and happy. I will be happy to be wrong. I don't see it, but I'll be happy.
The martyr. Oh my God.
Baker. Baker Mayfield. the most polarizing man in the NFL right now. I think he might
really
actually
is.
be the most polarizing player, at least one of the most polarizing figures, maybe behind Roger Goodell in the entire NFL is Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, it's so hard because like I wanted him. I was so happy when we drafted him. My dad and I argue about him every week. Like I wanted him to be the man, and I still do so bad. And I think that's why when you see these certain potentials, it's like, Jeremy, it's like dating a dude, okay, for me, that shows that like treats me really great in the beginning. He's like so nice to me, and then he ends up being a dick and showing me his true colors, and I just keep hanging on and romanticizing the good times. And I don't want it to be like that, but right now it kind of starts to feel like that a little bit. But that's kind of where it leads me to. I don't want to hang on to these, wow, remember that one moment, that one game, or that one season. I don't want it to be like that. I want it to continue for us to be competitive, for us to get the win, and for him to be the leader that we know he can be. And, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of other pieces that need to fall into place, of course, but everyone needs to do their job. And the best way for Baker to do his job best is if everyone else is doing their job.
Exactly.
The fullest.
And the problem is we have all these injuries of our frontline players.
Right.
So this will be a time for him to prove us wrong when we say that Baker's not the guy that can lift up the players around him, that he's the guy that needs players around him.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be the best time for him to prove us wrong and show that he can raise the level of play of some of these guys. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yep. All right. Yep. Well, we will, we'll see what happens. But before we close, Jeremy, you have some really good, exciting, uplifting news.
Well, I think this is fun and cool. So as everybody knows, I coach middle school football. I also run a youth program, and the school that I coach for is Copley, and the head of the Boosters Club came to me and said, hey, we got the Browns donated a signed Odell Beckham Jr. football to us, and we want to raffle it off to raise money for, all sports grades 7 through 12 of the schools. Would you guys be interested in promoting it a little bit for us and then announcing the winner on your show? And I said, yeah, that'd be cool. So what we're going to do is, if you go to my Facebook page, I'll put it on some other social media things. There's a link where you can go to buy tickets. The tickets are $25.
We'll put it on the Oranges Oranger Twitter too, Jeremy.
There you go. And go to the link. It's $25 for a ticket, for a raffle ticket. They'll send you the ticket, via your email. And then after the Steeler game, our episode after the Steeler game, we'll announce the winner. So cool little thing. It's a cool ball. It's like a Cleveland Browns themed football signed by Odell Beckham. I have a picture of it up and everything. So thought that was a cool thing, and, goes right along with our theme here. So I said, sure, I will help whenever we can help the kids and help the athletics department. We would love to do it. So we were happy to do it, and it'd be fun too.
Just like Trick, we love the kids. Just like Trick, we love the kids.
Check out our Twitter page. Check out my Facebook page. We'll have the links up there. And thank you guys, and take a look at it.
Yep, for sure. All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will be back next week to break down whatever team shows up next week, whoever's playing, because at this point, as we record, we do not know who's starting at quarterback, or who's officially on the injury report. So everyone have a fantastic week. Go Browns. The Oranges Oranger is brought to you by Press Play Podcasts. Follow us at Press Play Podcasts on Instagram and Twitter. And if you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please hit that like and subscribe button. Jeremy, let's hope for the best. Let's get this dub.
Let's go. I'll be there tomorrow night or Thursday night as always, and we'll see what happens.
Work your magic. Bring home a win.
Let's go.